Hey, come on over. Mom's not home till 6, and we're exploring the TV shows, movies, and pop culture media that made us all turn down the volume so our parents wouldn't hear. We're going to build our intimacy literacy and dig into all the weird messages we took from pop culture about sex, relationships, and ourselves. Because, let's be honest, this was all the sex ed we got. We will be talking about Euphoria today, specifically Season 1, Episode 3, Made You Look. I'm so excited to discuss this with Veronica Dress, sexuality educator, coach, intimacy director for theater, and the trustworthy sex-positive adult so many of the teenagers in this show needed in their lives.
Thank you. So glad to be here. I am joined by Blair Somerville, a relationship therapist specializing in gender and sexuality, and probably a great therapy referral for Rue, if we're honest.
Maybe. Addiction is not my lane generally, but as far as some of the other stuff in her life, for sure.
Bless her heart. Bless her heart. So if you, listener, have not seen Euphoria, or about, 3 years ago, were not taken in by everyone wearing really bold eye makeup as a result of Euphoria, we'll give you a little background context. This is Season 1, Episode 3, so we're pretty new into the universe of this show. It's a teen drama based on an Israeli drama of the same name, and it follows... I know.
I didn't know that.
It's true. And it follows Rue, short for Ruby is, the original name. Rue is the nickname. Played by Zendaya and her group of friends through her experience of drug addiction. It's set in California in some fictional town, and the characters take us on the wildest ride of love, loss, sex, and substance use. So it's a kooky, wild, out of control show. But let me tell you, the cinematography, delightful.
It's beautiful.
It's beautiful to watch. This show reminds me, did you ever watch Skins?
No, but I heard a lot about it.
I feel like Degrassi walked so Skins could run so that Euphoria could crash out. That's my new theory. Skins was like a British show in the early 2000s that was a similar concept and was equally unhinged when it came to like teenage partying, drug use, and sex. It was wild. So I feel like I had a flashback to that experience. Yeah. So today's episode, to give you just like the highs and lows of it all, and then we're going to dig in to two particular characters. Set the scene. Rue, Zendaya, is celebrating 60 days sober falsely. So she hasn't actually been sober, but she's keeping up the ruse. She gets her little chip. Coleman Domingo is a fellow NA participant who is like, "You're lying." And she's not willing to accept that. So she's falsely 60 days sober, and she's wrestling with feelings for her best friend, Jules. Jules, however, is focused on a guy she's falling for on Grindr, Tyler.
Love triangle.
We as the audience know that Tyler is a fake name. So in a classic modern day You've Got Mail situation, Tyler is actually Jules's classmate Nate, who is, let's say, not as lovely IRL.
The toxic masculinity jock.
Yes. And so he is on Grindr, meets Jules, they're hitting it off, and he is meanwhile dating another girl at the school, Maddie, who is like vaguely in the friend group. So that's the background there. She's taken thirst trap photo shoots with the help of Rue, which is obviously very emotionally taxing since Rue has a crush on her. She and Rue get into this really big argument about whether it's a good idea to meet him in person for the first time by the lake late at night after the carnival. Yep. It's a whole argument, at the end of which Rue ends up kissing Jules, and it does not, it sends her into a tailspin. She ends up trying to go buy drugs. She doesn't get the drugs, but it's a whole thing. Meanwhile, Kat, who's another friend and is chronically online, begins to navigate her unexpected, to her, leap into the world of online financial doming.
Oh, Kat, accidentally fin-doming.
Bitcoin and humiliation kinks. She like finds herself in the deep end of the internet, but she had started like a fan fiction writer in Tumblr. Like she was writing spicy erotica on Tumblr and had like a pretty big following. And that has led us to this moment. We see her just navigating this wild world and have kind of a self-confidence, self-lust makeover as a result. And in another bedroom in town, Nate's real-life girlfriend, Maddie, discovers the dick pics he's been sending Jules and begins to wonder about Nate's sexuality.
Well, and I guess, are those his dick pics or are they things he's downloaded online? Because some of them looked pretty different.
Did they? I thought they were dick pics he was taking of himself because Jules said... Oh, this is making me wonder some things because there's a discussion between Jules and Rue about how big his penis is. And Rue, there's like this whole little sex ed class dream sequence in which Rue was teaching people about the intricacies of dick pics and was like, well, we don't have anything to compare it to for scale, so we don't know how big it is. And then eventually she gets a scale one and says, okay, so his dick is as big as an Evian bottle. And one of the pics that we see Maddie find is the Evian bottle picture.
Yes.
So whether or not it's actually Nate's own dick, I can't speak to. But it is the pictures that he's sending to Jules.
Yes. Yes, those are the pictures he's sending to Jules. Maddie and Kat at some point had a little discussion where Maddie was like, do you think you have to be like 100% straight to be straight? Like her question about finding these photos seems to be how straight is he and not like, is he sending dick pics to other? Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair. So maybe that is different than I thought originally. And they have a lovely conversation about it. But there is so much here, right? Like so much. So while Rue is the clear protagonist in this show, I think it is worthwhile for us to really focus in on what is unfolding for Jules and Kat, respectively, for our chat today. Because I think while we see Rue really wrestling with her feelings for her best friend, there is largely a lot of this messages around sex and sexuality and bodies is happening, and gender is happening for Jules and Kat. And so before we get into the weeds here, I want to know first impressions. First impressions of this episode. What are you feeling?
First impressions. So I have watched Euphoria. It was a long time ago, so this was a refresher for me. This episode, I remember feeling like a little torn. Like on the one hand, there's a lot that I like in general about Euphoria. Like you said, it's beautifully shot, like great emotional stories. Love having Rue, our demisexual kind of gray ace lead for a show. That's wonderful to see. And at the same time, I often leave episodes of Euphoria feeling like, what in the hell kind of high schoolers are these? This is so much.
Yeah.
Like, I feel very old because there's a part of me that's like, is this really what the kids these days are up to? Like, there's no way. This is just a lot going on for them. So on the one hand, you know, it's great TV and I like a lot of the representational things they do. Like, I like having Kat be aware of weight and body pressures from a young age. I think that's realistic. And I like having her have to go through this journey that does include a lot of the internet, that does include fan fiction, to find some confidence in herself. But it is also still sort of, I don't know, male gazy, performative sort of confidence in a way. I don't know how much of it is for her at this stage. So yeah, I mean, I guess long story short, I have a lot of very mixed feelings about Euphoria and this episode. What about you?
Yeah, I think similarly, I feel like an old lady, but at the same time, I tend to work with a lot of high school students and young adults in theater spaces. And I think it's important to notice that this show came out in 2019, so before the pandemic. And so we know that like young people are drunk driving at lower rates because they are not leaving their houses as much, right? So we know that like partying looks different perhaps now than it did, and it was already declining before the pandemic. But these, to me, I watch this and I'm like, oh, you sweet pre-pandemic babies. Because so much of the pandemic, I think, really robbed young people of socialization, of confidence, of like sexual exploration. And we see now that Gen Z, from what the internet says, and maybe, you know, in real life as well, that Gen Z is much more sexually conservative than previous generations. And we can, you know, dig into that. And so this show feels out of step with that very distinctly.
Yeah.
And it makes great TV. Yeah. And I also kept thinking when I was watching it, I was like, oh my gosh, what would high school Veronica have gleaned from this? Like, it is, y'all, if you have not seen, it is a wild ride. It is the most wild ride.
Yeah.
But there are elements that I think are really like beautifully nuanced and representational and complicated, and even just discussing different sexual and gender identities is not something that would have been on TV for us as kids. So that's a beautiful thing. Yeah. Let's start with Kat, perhaps. So we start the episode with like kind of a cold open on Kat's backstory, which was that she was like typical, as Rue says, as the narrator, like pretty typical kid, like popular enough, nice enough.
Yeah. Got some friends.
Had some friends, you know. And she goes on vacation with her family and discovers virgin pina coladas and everything changes. She had, over the course of a family vacation, 72 virgin pina coladas. And so she comes back and her friend is like, what happened to you? Like immediately is policing her body. And she realizes she's gained 20 pounds, and she goes into school the next day, and her sweet, like, second, third grade boyfriend breaks up with her in the middle of class because he doesn't say it's because she's gained weight, but that's the implication. And so that sets the tone for our exploration of Kat, that she is very aware of her body, which, like, sure, I think, unfortunately, we all are, but not in the ways that would be most empowering or helpful for us a lot of the time. And so we see modern day Kat really navigating, reclaiming her sexuality and body. I think it's a really interesting question of whether or not it's performative. Like, I think that the fan fiction feels like it's truly for her in exploring imagination and these characters. There's a great Harry Styles queer fan fiction sequence that I love. But it feels like she's living a double life, right? This like online life where she's got 53,000 followers and people are obsessed with her writing. And she goes on to post a video of herself online, like doing like cam work of like dancing in her underwear in this really like sexy little lingerie situation with a little cat mask on to protect her anonymity. And people are loving it. People are losing their shit for her dancing, which surprises her. Yeah. And it kind of, we see her start to walk differently. We see her start to act more confidently with people. But for the most part, it really feels so clear that there's an online life and an in-person existence that are really, really different from one another. And so I'm curious what your thoughts are in watching that. Like, does it feel, what of her journey feels perhaps like worth examining in terms of this like dissonance between our online personalities versus who we live in the day-to-day as?
I think I really appreciate that they included fan fiction as a really formative thing for her. I think that that's something that people are often not very open about and that we don't talk about very frequently, but it is central. Like a lot of people will either read and maybe write, even if they don't write their own fan fictions, but reading it is kind of a first foray into like porn, because a lot of it is porn, like the snippet we saw that she was writing. And also it is a way that people start figuring out like what happens during sex. How do you go from an interaction that's like flirty into sex, and people start exploring what that can look or sound like. But I think something that is also really interesting that this episode, like they don't really get into it, but they raise it as a thing. It's really common for women into fan fiction on the internet to write and read fan fiction about gay men. And I think that's really interesting. I don't know, and I think it's an individual answer depending on the person. There's maybe some degree of it that is fetishizing gay men and relationships and friendships between men. And some of it that is maybe also like it feels safe. Men are allowed to have sexual desire culturally. Like it's expected of them to be very desirous and to enjoy sex all the time. And it doesn't always feel accessible or like quote unquote proper for women to feel the same. So some of that I suspect is like a safe way to engage with characters that are free to experience desire and sex and pleasure without having to dive into like, oh God, if I'm reading about women feeling that way, maybe that brings up a lot of baggage I have about my body as a woman. What does it mean for me as a woman to be into sex or to want this kind of sex? Is that allowed? How would someone treat me if that's what I want? So I don't know. I thought that was really interesting that they alluded to that without really diving into it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it does make me curious about. I have not dabbled in the world of fan fiction, but I'm like, maybe I need to. Maybe I need to get out there, you guys. I'm going to get in there. But I think we know that fantasy and like there's been Justin Lay Miller has done so much research around sexual fantasy out of the Kinsey Institute around, you know, so many pieces of fantasy, like what people fantasize about, what people's relationship to their fantasies are. And we know that just because somebody is fantasizing about a thing is not a one-to-one that they want to act upon that fantasy. But it is at the same time a really cool playground to discover any themes that might be emerging and what maybe desires might be hiding underneath, right? So I don't know that in this scene that Kat wants Harry Styles and I don't know the other dude. I have no idea.
I don't remember.
To be hooking up in real life, but
right.
But also, it might mean that there's something really exciting about the taboo of relationships that society deems as illicit, or that, you know, in the scene, the other band member, like, gives Harry Styles a blowjob right backstage before they go on stage. And, like, maybe getting caught is a piece of it, right? So there could be elements of that, like, mischievous taboo that is really appealing to people. And at the same time, I think, yeah, there is something about exploring gender and safety and vulnerability in our own imagination that I imagine is at play when it comes to like women safely imagining queer male interactions and noticing where it goes to a place of fetishization, right? Where it seems like maybe this is complicated, right? I am super curious about that. I think this is the first show that I've seen that even talks about fan fiction in that way.
Yeah, I agree. I don't really remember it coming up much on other shows. And I think you're right about like thinking about some of the themes in fantasy can be more helpful than examining like the specific detailed content every time, because we actually do see a little through line in that kind of fantasy for her when she's at the store And like the guy working there tells her we're going to close up soon. And then she has a fantasy of like seducing him, like trying on an outfit, and then they have sex in the dressing room, which again has maybe that element of like it's sort of it's a public space, but there is some degree of privacy. So there's a little risk of getting caught, but it's not totally immediately on display. That has that through line with the fan fiction she wrote about Harry Styles.
Yeah. And I love that daydream moment that we see her have, because it feels like the moment we see a crossover between her inner life and her online life and real life, right? We see it starting to seep in and be like, oh, well, what if I did this right now, right? We're starting to see her be a part of it. And I think maybe it's important to know that she's searching for lingerie for her first synchronous meetup with a guy online. So So for more of that, she posts this thing online, and one of the viewers messages her and is like, I think about you all the time. I would love to video chat. And I love that she doesn't pretend she knows what she's doing. She's like, what is that? Yeah. And he's like, I'll pay you. She's like, what? And he's like, yeah, how much do you want? And she like accidentally negotiates her way to $100 for 30 minutes or something. And so this guy shows up on the video call and is so earnest and so nervous. And he really takes the reins of the conversation, because she's pretty clear that this is her first time doing this, and she's not quite sure what the vibe is. And then he presents his micro penis to her out of a diaper. Is that right?
Yes, that's right.
And tells her that he wants her to make fun of him while he masturbates, and like to make fun of his tiny penis. And she is so in shock the whole time. Yeah. But her nervous giggles work, right? Because he's like, yeah, laugh at me. And so it ends with him being like, I want you to punish me if I touch myself thinking
he
about
wants
you.
to get into like orgasm control as well as humiliation with her.
Yeah, absolutely. And so she's like, what? And he's like, yeah, like, find me. And she's like, say less. Okay. And so she ends up getting in the Bitcoin game, and she's out there finding him $100 every time he comes. And we see her like she starts to wear some of the same things she wears online to school. Like that plaid skirt is one that she had bought for her cam girl situation. And so seeing that crossover start to happen, and I'm curious what your thoughts are about that performative nature, because by design, I think the cam experience and the orgasm control and the financial domination, that is performance by design, right? Like this is character work and a chosen power dynamic that everybody chooses to play with. And I wonder like what feels important as information about kinks or humiliation or financial domination that we aren't getting from this story arc. Like if we did not know the things we know because we're in the biz, and we were watching this as like high school Blair and high school Veronica, like what pieces of information doesn't this show give us maybe that feels like it would be important context for the average viewer?
I mean, it doesn't really talk at all about the safety risks of agreeing to just chat with some random person online that you don't know. And I don't know if are you familiar with GeoGuessr as a game, Veronica?
Mm-mm.
There's this game people will play online. It's GeoGuessr. And you know how on Google Maps, when you zoom in, there's like, you can see photos from Street View and stuff?
What?
So the game is you'll get a photo from Street View. You're like in a spot and you can see one photo and you can try to guess where in the world this location is. And people are scarily good at this, even with interior photos, because they'll look around and like get little clues. They'll be like, okay, so it looks like it's this time of day, or like this type of tree and this shape of sign. And like, okay, this type of power line means, oh, look at the outlet plug over here. That means we must be in this part of the world. So like, even if you're relatively anonymous online, it is possible for people to get a lot of information about you and your location just from your background, I guess, is what I'm thinking by sharing all that.
Well, that was what my first thought was about her very first video she posted dancing, is that she's like in kind of like a little hallway between her bedroom and her bathroom. That's like I guess she's in like the primary suite. And so it's not like you have to walk down the house's hallway, but her little wardrobe and closets are in that hallway. And I'm like, this is very clearly, if anyone's been in your room.
Yeah, it's you.
It's you, right? If any friend were to see it or if someone were to share it. And a lot of this happens because something was leaked, right?
Yes, in a previous episode, if I'm remembering correctly, she's been someone who's relatively sexually inexperienced in real life. Like we established, she has this rich fantasy life and online life, but not a lot of real life experience. And she is at a party, and I think someone like invites her into some kind of sexual activity. I forget what they do, but she doesn't know it's being recorded. And then it's posted online, and she finds out later, and she seems to be having a complicated like response and emotions around like, oh my God, people like this. They're like really into me when I've clearly had a lot of insecurities about my body for a while now. And so in some ways it feels very validating and exciting. And in other ways it is like, this was
a
uploaded.
non-consensual.
Yeah, I didn't agree to this, and I didn't know I was being recorded. And I don't know if I would have agreed if I had known that.
So in many ways, that this episode feels like some sort of reclamation, or she's trying to navigate some sort of reclamation of power in her presence online. Like she's choosing these things.
And I guess that's what's hard for me is like also continually reminding myself, so many of these shows, like we've talked about, it's not as egregious as Grease was, but like these are clearly in a lot of ways adults, and they're playing teenagers. And sometimes it's easy to forget that they are children. They're teenagers. They are not adults. And that this is the first time they're doing a lot of this stuff, and they're doing it without a lot of trust or support. Like we see Kat kind of hiding this stuff even from her friends.
Yeah.
She's not talking to her friends about it either. So she doesn't really have any support as she's figuring out, how do I actually feel about this? Do I want to lean into this because it feels like the only way I can reclaim some sense of power and control? Am I wanting to lean into this because I enjoy it and it kind of excites me? Am I just figuring things out and exploring, and that's okay? Like, we don't really get a strong sense that she has much support discerning her emotions around it and her motivations.
Yeah. It doesn't feel like there's a ton of adult humans present in everybody's world in general. I mean, her mom comes into the room while she's filming her feet, and she's like, come on, you can film your feet later. We got to eat dinner. Like, sees it, clocks it, doesn't think anything sinister is happening, and away we go. And really the only parents or guardians we see have these interesting spurts of stepping into their, role as parents and being like, hey, don't do this, or hey, I hope that you do this or don't do this, whatever it is. But otherwise are really hands off, right? Like we see Sydney Sweeney go out for the weekend to stay at her boyfriend's dorm, and her mom is just like, don't get pregnant. And that's pretty much it. Yeah. And Rue's mom is really understandably concerned about Rue's drug use, but doesn't seem to be taking an active role in her going to her NA meetings or like driving her there, any of those things.
Yeah. And I forget if that's something Rue negotiated. Rue's mom, I think, is one of the most active parents. Nate's dad is an important figure too because of his connection with Jules and his character arc, but that's not really present in this episode.
Yeah. So I feel like, there's like this clear distinction, and the lines are starting to get more and more blurry for Kat. And you're right. It seems like everyone is very isolated, even the way that this is shot. I think that it is very clear, like, here's this universe, and here's that universe, and here's that universe. And sometimes the screen splits and we see we're actually all in the same room. But I think that experience as young people of feeling so hugely consumed by our own stuff, not realizing what's going along for the people around us, or not really having the tools to even understand it if they were to share it, I think is a big piece. I think Kat asks if any of her friends know anything about Bitcoin, but that's the extent to which she loops people in. And
I did want to ask you.
Yeah.
I have a question for you about intimacy coordination, but I don't want to interrupt your thought. So finish what you were saying and then I'll ask.
Baby, you ask me.
Okay. I was really curious how coordination works with this sort of like synchronous video interaction we see between Kat and the guy, her new cash pig, because he's like masturbating on camera for her, at least for some period of their video call. And I don't know if you have any insight onto how something like that would be coordinated, like between the two of them, because they're not actually in the same space, but they are interacting.
Yeah. I think my suspicion would be that it would be filmed separately, right? It wouldn't actually be synchronous. And perhaps Kat, in order for the timing to work, I suspect that the actor playing Kat would actually be watching a video, but perhaps would have had time ahead of time to see that video or expectations about what is in the video. I think there is often in scenes of simulated sex, and I would qualify self-pleasure under that umbrella, choices that we can make as part of the filming process surrounding how much of the experience a person sees versus what is implied. Often people are using some sort of like prosthetic or modesty garment, so we're not actually seeing what we think we're seeing. I think in some ways, because this man has a micro penis, first, we don't know how much is edited, but also that actually lends itself really beautifully to mimicking self-pleasure without seeing a penis for a lot of it. Like when I was watching it last night, this is such nerdy intimacy direction brain, but I was like, I feel like I can't really see his dick when he was actually self-pleasuring. Like his hand was in such a place and the micro penis was so small that it truly, like he could have been wearing some sort of prosthetic and his hand was covering a lot of it. But I think in terms of the consent piece and like boundaries for the actors of like how they wanted to navigate it, I think it makes sense that it not be filmed, right? His would have to be filmed and then she would be responding to him. And so she ideally would have had an opportunity to at least watch the video once or twice before filming. In an ideal world, I mean, I think film sets can be really, really urgency, timing focused because time is money.
Yeah.
But in an ideal world, it wouldn't be the first time she is seeing that, or she'd at least know what she's expected to see. And I think an intimacy coordinator would help with the communication between departments for all of that. Also for the person enacting the masturbation, like for that actor, what kind of coverage is important to him, what kind of modesty garments important to him, and all of those things. So I think those are just off the top of my head. I'd be intrigued to know about it. I bet there's something out there somewhere about how folks navigated it. I bet. Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah. Inside the biz, baby.
Yeah.
Yeah. What thoughts or questions come up from? I see your wheels turning.
Well, I think that it's just really interesting. Like, I don't know, there's a lot that seems, I guess, obvious to an amateur that like, okay, my assumptions, I guess, that I'm making when there's two actors interacting live in the same space about like, okay, they've had a discussion about this. They're like wearing things that will help them simulate sex without actually having, we're obviously not watching porn because that would not be allowed to be broadcasted in the same way that they're broadcasting this.
I mean, but that brings up the question, like, that's so complicated, right? Like, who decides what is porn and in what context, right? Because his video, if it were just posted on Pornhub by itself, would absolutely qualify as porn.
And HBO is like infamous for riding that line of what counts as porn and what is like safe for TV.
Yeah.
So it's clearly not like, we never see real intercourse or anything like that occurring on the show. But when there's two live actors, I guess I just have a lot more assumptions about things they've done to prepare everyone and make them feel comfortable and safe in that setting. And I just realized, like, watching that scene, I don't have any assumptions and I don't really know where you'd begin with negotiating something like that. And what you said made a lot of sense, that, like, obviously they're not recording this as a live, like, Zoom screen capture.
Right, because that would
And she likely would have seen the video ahead of time. And, like, maybe been able to sit with the coordinator, the intimacy coordinator, and talk through, like, okay, so how do I want to handle this part and that part? And, like, does this feel okay for me? And stuff like that.
Or the opposite could have happened, that they filmed her section first, right? And so she's responding to the dialogue, right? Like, what is in the stage directions, but perhaps... Yeah, I'm intrigued by that. I know that a very prominent intimacy coordinator does all of HBO's shows and is, like, phenomenal. But yeah, I think when technology is included in it, it gets to be a really complicated little dance. And some people, for a long time, there would be no conversation, right? Up until very, very recently, it would be like, all right, go do the scene. And which, you know, you've heard me say a million times, I think is a throwaway of artistic decision-making and safety, right? Both and. But some actors, and there's even more, I feel like I just saw a video the other day in my niche algorithm about actors talking about some will, like, turn down having an intimacy coordinator, and knowing that it is a personal choice, but that the option should always be available, and how complicated that gets when there's multiple people in a room, especially if the person turning it down has more status or power or fame than the person who perhaps would really benefit from having that resource. And so I think it all comes down to that power negotiation. And at the end of the day, even if someone chooses to say no thank you, the fact that they are able and have the option to choose from their own what's best for them is hugely different than perhaps it was however many years ago. So it's complicated. But I think the online nature of all of this, like, I feel like both Kat and Jules are both navigating this online existence versus in-person existence. I feel like, to me, that's the big thread throughout all of it. However, while we are seeing the decision to integrate the two happen in very, very small ways, if any, for Kat, right? Like, she's wearing maybe some new clothes. She's asking friends vague questions. But for Jules, the desire to bring the online into real life is much more clear, right? Jules is feeling big feelings for Nate/Tyler, and is wanting to bridge that divide. And I think, I'm curious, as someone who has seen more of this show than I have, I've seen a few episodes, but not the whole thing. There is an element of dread, I think, that we as the audience are supposed to feel about this dynamic.
Yeah.
I think we're all supposed to kind of feel like Rue when Jules is, like, meets Rue outside of school on, like, a picnic blanket and is like, I've been waiting to tell you, I'm going to meet him. It's got that horror movie, like, no, don't go through that door energy.
Yeah.
Does that feel true for you as someone who has seen Euphoria more broadly than I have?
Yes, it definitely does, because the viewer knows that Nate is coordinating. Like, he's done this. He sought her out specifically because he found out, like, his dad cheats regularly on Nate's mom, and often with trans women and also with men. And he takes videos of it secretly.
The dad does.
So there's also a similarity of secret videos. Yes. and keeps them on his computer. And then Nate will sometimes watch them, which is a whole other thing. So he knows, and he recognized Jules from school.
Mm-hmm.
So he has specifically sought her out. And
wait,
we
Jules
know that
had sex with his dad.
Yes.
Ugh, this is the problem with me watching one episode of a whole season.
Yes. So Jules is very familiar with, like, we meet online and then we meet up at like a motel or something, and has done a lot of like high risk things in regards to that, and has been injured because of it. Like, I believe the interaction with Nate's dad turned into sexual assault, if I'm remembering correctly.
I think you're right now that I'm slowly remembering previous episodes. Yeah.
So there's this dread. I think by this point too, we've seen that Nate is also a bit unstable and can have a lot of rage. And so as an audience, I think we are meant to feel a lot of fear that, like, Jules has been harmed once by a sexual encounter gone terribly bad with Nate's dad. And now Nate, as some sort of like revenge, I don't know, is basically stalking Jules, and now is getting her to meet up in secret, alone, like where nobody's around at nighttime. I think we are, intended to feel a lot of fear of what it is he's going to do to her.
Yeah. And
it's true when she says, I've been in some very unsafe situations. I think that's meant to evoke that dramatic irony also of like, and this is going to be maybe equally as bad as exactly what you're referencing.
Right. If not, I mean, worse is a value judgment, I think. But like, if not more calculated and intentional, like we don't know enough to know
premeditated.
Premeditated, yes. Whereas like it seems perhaps that his dad's behavior, I mean, I don't know, was in the moment, or if it was premeditated, we don't have that data.
Yeah, it seems more there's more of a feeling that she's falling into a trap.
Yes,
with this.
A trap that has been very carefully set, because they're sitting there in the same classroom as they are texting, and he knows, but she doesn't.
Yeah,
and so there's just so much there, and I think it can't be overlooked that Jules is a trans woman, right? Like that is a safety piece of everything too, or like a marginalized identity that experiences a lot of violence often. And it feels like Rue's concern. Rue is just such a tender little baby with such big feelings. Yeah. And I think to frame it specifically that Rue is concerned because she has a crush or has feelings for Jules is almost underplaying the motivation or the reality of what's going on. Yeah. That like as a friend and as a person who knows Jules and what she's been through in the past, I think Jules and Rue are actually both having very similar experiences of their friendship. That Jules is like, I can't watch this train wreck of you killing yourself through drugs. And Rue is like, I can't watch this train wreck of you ending up murdered by choosing to engage with these folks. And I guess like the bigger question becomes like, when it comes to the internet and safety and dating, right? I mean, we could take this in a real macro sense and go to the fact that like more and more folks are engaging with AI as companions, right? There's and maybe in the context of these sorts of moments, I can see the appeal of choosing something. Yeah.
Something is relatively safe, at least to your physical person.
Right. But that like we know that AI is so trained by our problematic society that it turns friendship, companionship people are seeking into sexual situations. So AI will just start sexting people who are otherwise being like, I just wanted to nerd out about the solar system with you. So this could be extrapolated in so many ways, but I'm wondering when we think about the healthy ever after of it all, and I feel like I struggle even with our phrasing of healthy ever after, because health is such a subjective term, and often what is labeled as healthy is through the lens of the oppressor.
Yeah, it's like a rigid tool of control sometimes and shaming people for things.
I know, but I don't want to call it a happy ever after either. Give us another H word, people. A horny ever after.
We'll keep workshopping.
I don't know.
We're workshopping.
Yeah. Give us an H word that fits, that's not health or happy. Or happy for a while. Maybe not ever after, because that's unrealistic. But yeah, like when it comes to the online piece of things for Jules, and you know what happens next, and I'm starting to remember that perhaps I do as well. The beauty of a bad memory. I could rewatch this show so many times and it'd all be new.
Rewatch it again for the first time.
What would you envision when it comes to Jules specifically and navigating this trap that has been set for her?
Yeah. For Jules, I don't know. It is really hard because she feels trapped like societally as well. I think the way she puts it is like, well, I don't always get to meet people in a public place because people in this town know that I'm trans and that creates pressure on me, and it creates pressure on someone who might want to be in relationship with me.
Yeah.
And it can be uncomfortable. It's sort of like she's being forcibly outed everywhere she goes. And that's part of what's so uncomfortable for her, and also part of what's so, I guess, like, I don't know, hurtful. It makes my tummy hurt as a viewer when Nate, as Tyler, is doing all this stuff, like working really hard to keep affirming her. And being like, yeah, she like makes fun of him or something and says that he's gay because he met her on this app, Grindr. Yeah. But he says, yeah, but I met a beautiful woman here. And that, yeah, like makes my tummy hurt because I'm like, I know that that is true. And it makes me so mad that he's saying it as a manipulation to make her more comfortable, to victimize her in the exact ways she's afraid of being victimized because she's a trans woman and she is marginalized and doesn't get the luxury of the types of safety outlets that cis people can have. Like, I always meet in a public place and I tell everyone who I'm meeting and share my location. And she's like, I don't get to do those things. Those aren't options for me in the same way.
Right.
So I guess I wish that she lived in a different universe that was more trans affirming.
Well, sure.
So that she can have more of those safety things. Barring that, I wish that, I guess I'm not super sure what's going on with her relationship with her dad. We see her dad. Yeah. I wish she felt comfortable telling him at least, like, I have a date with someone at the carnival. Like, I wish she could talk to more people other than Rue about, hey, I'm like chatting with this guy online and I'm really liking him. And these are the things he's saying, like, especially an adult who could say to her, something seems a little odd about this, or like, I'm happy for you, but how do we make sure you're safe too? Because ultimately this is some random online person and we don't know if what they're saying is accurate.
Right. And Rue starts to say all of the quote unquote right things, right? Like, meet them by day somewhere. And the points that Jules is sharing are valid. Like, I can't just do that in the same way. And like my wish, right? I don't want our envisioning of an alternative ever after to be like the emotional burden is placed on Jules, right? Because that sucks. And in the current circumstances we find her in, I'm like, okay, well, if everyone in town knows you and that doesn't feel safe, what does it look like to change your radius on Grindr to a drivable distance? But like, maybe you do meet up by day, but you meet up by day somewhere that's not home, right? That's
the next town.
Next town over. And maybe Rue comes and hangs out at the next booth, right? I mean, that would be torture for Rue because she's in love with her, but and maybe that's my ever after, is that they communicate more about that. But do they? You've seen it. What happens next with them?
Yeah, so eventually they do. I think part of what's complicated for Rue is that she's sort of figuring out to what degree she feels attraction in the first place. So she's a little confused by her feelings in a number of ways. They do eventually communicate more about it. And I think Jules does become like concretely aware of Rue's feelings. I don't remember if they like started a relationship, a romantic or sexual relationship. I kind of don't think they did. I think they continued in this like deeply emotionally entangled but undefined way.
Tale as old as time.
Tale as old as time.
Yeah. I mean, I want safety for Jules until she can go to Parsons like she dreams of and be more safely out as trans and not have to navigate feeling like a date with her is some sort of test of safety or like bear trap she's walking into, because she deserves all of us deserve more than that, but in this instance, specifically her. Yeah. And it also sucks that in that daydream, that means that she doesn't have any like high school romance, because she deserves that if she wants that.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about for Kat? What do you envision as Kat's joyful next reality?
Oh, Kat. It's hard because I do remember some about what happens with her too. There's this guy at school. We saw a little bit of him. He spotted her some money for lunch.
Buy her lunch, but she's on a grapefruit diet, which is a whole other thing we could have gotten into, but time, etc.
Yes. Well, I don't know if she's actually on the grapefruit diet or if she just didn't have money and that was the only thing she could afford.
Yeah.
But either way, yes, the grapefruit diet was a whole other thing that we could discuss. But he's really into her and he's very sweet. And as I recall, I wish she had maybe a therapist or some adult she trusted.
That's the story in everything, right? Is like, what about addiction? But also like, that's the beauty of peer education, right? Like that's I'm a slut for peer education as a concept, because young people are turning to their friends before anybody else. And what would it be like if their friends had resources and accurate information and all of the things they need to be well equipped to navigate this? Because right now, young people are navigating big stuff and usually are doing it siloed from the adults in their world. So,
yeah, because what I don't want for Kat is a little bit of what I recall happening with her, where her engagement with like these performances online and porn online translates into her expectations for real life interactions and sets her up for frustration and disappointment and like maybe not quite tolerating the awkwardness and like normal uncertainty that comes with sex with real people in real life, especially other peers who are new to it.
Right. That shift from performance to connection in the moment with someone. And I think that in the right context, they can exist simultaneously, right? Like the character and the play that is so present in what she's doing right now, existing in tandem with connection that's authentic with another person or people. But I think it seems like she's kind of jumped 2 feet into the deep end without perhaps having the swimmies that she might benefit from having in as like foundational info, right? And I mean, that's so common for folks to learn about sex through porn. And it does set those unrealistic expectations. Not to demonize porn, because I think, in the right contexts, porn can be awesome. And avoiding it being the only way people are learning about sex, because it does set these expectations that folks don't need to communicate, that everyone's just going to know the next move, that everyone's going to orgasm from the same things, that it's never awkward.
It's always this very high intensity thing. Yeah.
Yeah. More awkward sex. Put that on TV.
Yeah. Put that on TV.
Give me more awkward sex. I actually knew somebody who, in an effort to combat that pressure that they were feeling about porn and performance, started watching porn bloopers. And that was so helpful for them. And I was like, I would never have thought of that. But like, more porn bloopers.
It's a good idea.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, put on more blooper reels. Yeah. I love those.
America's Funniest Home Porn Video.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you would wish for Kat after this episode?
Yeah, my wish for all of them is community that is like a little bit more well-resourced and able to be vulnerable or hold one another's vulnerability. Right now, it feels like they're all, you know, Rose and Jack on the lifeboat and they can't all be on it at the same time.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
emotionally, I would wish that for her. And maybe, you know, she likes to read. Maybe we make sure she gets access to some empowering sorts of reads about sex and sexuality that are not, and when I say empowering, I don't mean that in the, like, you know, icky, slut-shamey way. I mean, like, she's stepping into her power right now, very clearly. And what are some, like, supportive reflections that can help her through that really big change? Because this is a really big change for her. And she's getting a lot of experiential learning, but maybe some place to reflect about what of that learning feels great, what feels funky, what feels like it's fun for her, what feels like it's maybe not that fun for her, but is where she feels stuck. Like, you know, we love to reflect.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. And I totally agree. I think it'd be nice if she had more empowering resources that I guess also helped her understand, like, that because it is powerful, it can hurt her or other people, and that how she can feel powerful and like enjoy herself while being mindful of how she impacts herself long term and maybe people that she cares about.
Yeah. I just want everyone to have the resources to engage in their choices with eyes wide open and as intentionally as they want to, whatever those choices are, right?
Agree.
Yeah. If I want a world where Jules can meet Nate at the lake and nothing bad would happen, but that's not the world, unfortunately, we live in. And so how do we work for that world and at the same time, like, meet the world we're in right now? And it's hard to do that if everyone is afraid to talk about sex out loud, or it's so taboo. Yeah. You know? That's why we're changing the world, Blair, through talking about Euphoria on the internet together.
Yeah, maybe us talking about Euphoria is the most important thing we could do.
I think you're exactly right. Time to clock out. We put in a full day's work just now.
I think I am exactly right. And oh my God, I can't believe it's already that time again. And Mom's about to get home.
Oh, she would not enjoy. My mother would not enjoy Euphoria.
No, I don't.
Oh, no. What are they doing? So I better go. Until next time, Blair.
Yeah, we better go. Yeah, we'll see you next time. Thank you so much for joining us for this season of Mom's Not Home Till 6. Look out for more info from us soon about our next season. Get in the comments about things you'd like to see.
Exactly right. We'll probably send you a short little mini chat about updates or things that we might shift or edit about how we do this. This first season is your sampler platter. It's your Lunchable. It's your little charcuterie board of different kinds of media. But we get to do whatever we want next season. So let's go wild. We're throwing a party because Mom's not home. Love you.
Exactly.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you so much for joining us today on Mom's Not Home Till 6. Leave us a rating or review on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you found us. Pitch us your alternate ending or send suggestions to momsnothome till6@gmail.com, spelled with no punctuation and the numeral 6. You can find more from us by following us on Instagram at momsnothome till6 or on Blue Sky at momsnothome. Find more from Veronica by following her on Instagram at The Dress Rehearsal, or support the podcast financially on Patreon at The Dress Rehearsal. We'd like to extend our gratitude to the queer and trans communities, past and present, who've made it possible to be the people we are today, and to you for listening. Now be sure to change that TV channel back to something appropriate before Mom gets home, and we'll catch you next time.